and welcome to the very first part of Flipping the Classroom. This week we are focusing on plot, which are the 5 main parts of a narrative. In order to understand any story correctly, you need to have an understanding of plot. So here we go. Here's the plot line, and it looks a little bit different than the ones that we've done so far, and you'll see why in a second. So the first part of plot is the conflict, and that's the problem, or in our case, also the main idea. Without a conflict, you can't have a story. The next part is the rising action, where they're going to build suspense. The character is going to try to solve their conflict, but they won't be successful quite yet. And if you think about it in terms of first, next, and then, like we do when we write, you'll get a better grasp of the rising action. And all of this is leading to the climax. This is a turning point in the story. The character is going to have some sort of confrontation that leads to resolving their conflict. Think of it as something is either going to be found or it's going to be destroyed, and that's a big moment in the story. Then we have the falling action, where the problem is solved and the lesson's going to be learned, and the resolution is the ending. And this is different now because the resolution ends above where the conflict started, because now the character is different. They've learned things, they've grown, they're going to be a better human being, or what other type of character they are. We can code a narrative just like you can code anything, like we do expository text with descriptive and comparison and cause and effect, and the coding is generally the same. We're going to circle the topic still, which in a narrative is our major character. And the main idea or the conflict we're going to double underline, just like we always do. And key events we're going to underline. And we're going to be pretty choosy with what we underline. We don't want to underline everything because not everything is important. So on the next screen you're going to see an example story, and we'll get to code it and then put the events into a plot line. So here we go. This is a story about a guy named Narcissus. And it's a myth, so you're going to learn something about nature. Now I want you to pause the video and take a minute to read the story. And yes, pause it and read it. And when you're ready, unpause it and we'll keep going. Okay, now you've read the story and you should know who the major character is. And since we're coding this, we are going to circle it. The major character is Narcissus. There he is, but we don't want to just circle him once. We're going to circle him every time he comes up. And let's not forget that pronouns call out the major character too. Since Narcissus is a boy, all the pronouns that we circle that lead back to him are he. And there they are. In a narrative, you'll find quite a lot of them. The second step is to find the conflict or the main idea and to double underline it. Well, in this case, the conflict is the very first sentence. Narcissus was a beautiful-looking boy, but he was vain. If you're vain, you are arrogant. You think you're all that and a bag of chips. And that is a conflict, because people who think that way about themselves don't have very many friends, and it gets them into trouble. So there's our conflict, or our main idea. Now we want to look for some of the main events to get to our first, next, then, and our climax, and our falling action resolution. So I'm looking through, and I'm going to look for actions. What does Narcissus do? Well, the first main thing that he does is he sees his reflection, so I've underlined it. And what does he do once he sees his reflection? He falls in love with what he saw. So he loves himself. What else does he do after that? He tries to touch it, but it breaks up because it's water and it's not real. So after that, he's heartbroken, so he stops eating, he loses his looks, and he pines for his love. And what happens next? He dies. Then Aphrodite takes pity on him, and she makes a flower grow in his place. So I'm still looking for actions. And at the very end, it tells us that Narcissus flowers can still be found to this day. So there's our story. We didn't underline very much because we only want the most important parts. And now we can use our information to fill in a blank plot line. So in here we're going to use our own words to fill in what happened in the story. At the bottom goes our conflict. Narcissus is beautiful but vain. And then we have a first, next, then, and the rising action. We're building suspense leading towards the climax. First, Narcissus falls in love with his reflection. Next, he cannot touch his reflection. Then he stops eating and loses his beauty. And this leads to the big moment. In this case, something is destroyed. Narcissus himself is destroyed because he dies. The falling action is Aphrodite makes a flower to bloom in his place. Narcissus can't learn a lesson because he's dead. So the lesson here is that something at least beautiful, a flower, can come out of death. And then at the ending, Narcissus' flowers still grow. And so that is plot in a nutshell. When you come into class on Monday, you will be able to do some of your own plot lines and coding to show what you learned.